There's a trend right now of financiers, investors, businessmen, and entrepreneurs moving away from their usual space where everything's about money and moving towards politics that is a little bit weird and, in many people's views, a little bit dangerous. Now, I personally think it's likely due to the rise in social media and the effects that that has on our society as a whole. And while it's entirely feasible that I'm wildly off base on that, what isn't wrong and what is absolutely true is that this is affecting how we're living. Donald Trump became president of the United States, for God's sake. Michael Bloomberg tried to become president of the United States, although he didn't see quite as much success. Over the last few months, and really the last 2 years actually, Elon Musk has gone absolutely mental, getting really involved in politics. Over the last couple of months, Jeff Bezos has even started to become outspoken, despite his moniker as one of the most unpopular people in the world right now. To top it all off then, we have crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried and Michael Burry, the investor of Big Short fame, also getting involved in politics, letting everyone in the world know where they stand, trying to influence the world, which is usually a little bit outside of their remit. Now, you might say, why are we bothering talking about this on a finance channel then? Yes, they may have come from that sort of area where this would be relevant, but moving into politics may not be. Well, to that, I would simply say that when Trump came into power, he implemented tariffs on China. He changed the American economy. He drove it in one direction. And his influence that came from his social media, from things like his tweets, was absolutely unparalleled and the most important thing about the American markets during his tenure. I really don't think it's too far-fetched at all to say that these changes, these people getting involved into the political space, will impact finance. It will impact your investments, it will impact our economies, and it will be worth talking about. So what exactly prompted me to make this video then? What is the new piece of news? Elon's been tweeting for ages. Trump hasn't even been president for ages. What is the change that has spurred along this video? Well, it's right in front of you. It is the crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, who has already actually been a little bit involved in politics, but he just came out and he made it known that he's willing to spend up to $1 billion US on the next US presidential election cycle. Now, for those of you who don't know, Sam Bankman-Fried, who usually goes by the moniker of SBF, is a crypto billionaire. He made his first fortune by recognizing an arbitrage opportunity between the prices of Bitcoin in various countries. I think in particular, it was the price in the US compared to the price in Japan. He was buying Bitcoin in the US and selling it in Japan and making about $10 million a day. Fast forward 10 or so years, and now he runs and owns one of the largest crypto exchanges in the world, focusing on institutional investors, FTX. Now, as I said, he has been involved in politics in the past, donating about $200 million to various individual politicians, strengthening their cases for election. But this time, this next election cycle, it seems he's going to go all out. In a recent podcast, he came out and said that he will be spending more than $100 million in a single cycle, and he could go as high as $1 billion, but even that is a soft ceiling. It isn't unfeasible that he goes even higher. He has, for most part in the past, supported Democrats, but in reality, he seems to be more influenced by individual politicians. He doesn't really support the Democratic Party, but individual Democrat politicians. Most notably, he donated heavily to Joe Biden's campaign and was probably quite pleased when he was elected. He says right here that his donations to politicians during the next election cycle, or should I say investments, because really that's what they are, will depend entirely on who's running. He isn't picking one broadside, he will pick an individual that he wants to support. On the surface, he seems to be rather philanthropic with this. He said that in the end, the issues he cares about are those that are most important to the world that we hand to our children. He's trying to create a better world for our children and our grandchildren, and if that is the case, then that's certainly noble, but with everything like this, we can never truly be sure of his intentions. Valued at somewhere in the region of $20 billion right now, it is without a doubt true that he could have a massive implication. He could change the state of politics in the US, he could drive a certain Democratic nominee to the top of the list, or he could probably get one ousted. I don't think it's unreasonable at all to say that this is a paradigm shift, with crypto billionaires getting involved in politics and trying probably to get people elected who will likely be favorable towards the crypto industry. Now, when I tell you that Elon Musk has also been getting political recently, I know you're not going to be surprised. It's blindingly obvious at this point. For the last 6 months, even a year, he's been tweeting political jibes at various people and parties. But over the last few months, and the last week actually, it really has taken a far stronger turn. What with his acquiring of Twitter, which we actually don't know if it's going to go through at this point, but about a week ago, he came out with this bombshell of a tweet saying that in the past he had voted for the Democrats because they were the kindness party. They were about compassion and humanity, but they are no longer that party. They are now the party of division and hate, so he will in the future vote Republican. This is a major move for him to explicitly come out and state what side of the political spectrum he lies. It was a little bit obvious to anyone who's paid attention for a long time. The left in general are not huge advocates of free speech, while the right tend to be, and Elon has made free speech one of his major priorities. In fact, it isn't too far-fetched at all to say that free speech is probably what has driven his attempted $44 billion acquisition of Twitter this entire time. This tweet encapsulates that perfectly. The extreme antibody reaction from those who fear free speech says it all. It's clearly an issue close to his heart, and he's clearly trying to change the way politics runs in the United States and probably the rest of the world as well. Again, no one will be surprised when I say that Elon could literally change the state of politics in the US single-handedly. Such is the size of his wealth, his influence, and his political ability, his maneuvering. He employs thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, and he is a business and institution in and of himself. Now, this hasn't come without its fair share of problems for Elon. He has, especially recently, garnered widespread hate and distrust from people from actually all sides of the political spectrum who are unhappy with what he's doing and they want to make it known. This has, of course, led to numerous articles by various publications where people tried to explain his rapid loss in wealth. He is now no longer worth $200 billion. As you can see, they try and claim that it's because of his political posturing, that people aren't happy with what he's saying, so they're selling their Tesla shares. But in reality, Tesla is actually still outperforming most hypergrowth stocks. Yes, it's still very expensively valued, but compared to stocks like Pinterest or Peloton or Zoom, actually, it hasn't fallen that much in value at all. And this is likely, the Tesla drop that is, it's likely due to the change in macroeconomic environment as opposed to what Elon is saying on Twitter. Jeff Bezos, though, is apparently undeterred by this at all. He doesn't see Elon's detraction, his decrease in his wealth, as a sign that this is a bad idea to go into this area. And over the last few weeks, he has kind of taken on the reins from Elon. He's obviously noted that actually Elon is having huge influence, and it comes from Elon's willingness to just speak from the heart, to be himself, despite the fact he has a massive platform and is an institution of himself. Go back a few years, back when Jeff Bezos was actually running Amazon, and he would never say anything that wasn't carefully planned and scripted. It was all media training 101. He had a public company at stake, so he couldn't take risks, but now he can. Most recently, Jeff Bezos called out Joe Biden when Biden claimed that it was corporations' fault that inflation was so high, which, let's be perfectly clear, is utter nonsense. That is false. If there were any impartial fact checkers, they would be calling Joe Biden's statement a lie, but of course there aren't. Jeff Bezos took aim as well and made it abundantly clear that when you quadruple the size of the money supply over the course of just over a year, inflation takes place. It's blindingly obvious, and he came out with this tweet after that. Look, a squirrel, this is the White House's statement about my recent tweets. They understandably want to muddy the topic. They know inflation hurts the neediest most, but unions aren't causing inflation and neither are wealthy people. Remember, the administration tried. Now here he's talking about this statement from the White House where they basically make this weird claim that the wealthiest people in the world are trying to muddle and change the economic agenda and convince people that actually they're not at fault when the White House claims they are. Again, let me make this clear. This is a lie by the White House. If there were fact checkers, they would flag this up. Everything would be highlighted in red and it would be struck off the record as utter nonsense. Of course, to try and make matters even worse for Jeff Bezos, they bring into the fold things about unions, of which Amazon is fighting a brutal battle at the moment, which really, again, isn't very valuable. It isn't really relevant at all. Unions don't cause inflation, governments do. Let's also not forget that just a couple of years ago, Jeff Bezos actually went out and bought the Washington Post, one of the largest publications in the world. And as of yet, actually, it doesn't seem to have taken too much of a slant. It still produces pretty much the same content that it always has. But very recently, the last few weeks or so, I have noticed a slight shift, and I wouldn't be surprised if I saw that continue into the future. Even Michael Burry, the big short investor, that guy who predicted the downfall of the housing market and made himself and his investors hundreds of millions of dollars, even he is getting involved in politics these days, taking a very right-wing stance where he basically tries to oppose the Democratic agenda and to make sure that his views are known. No bigger lie than Trump and Russia, and it started with Hillary. This severely damaged a US presidency and divided the US. Hillary Clinton personally approved the plan to share Trump and Russia allegations with the press in 2016, coming from her campaign manager and the CNN. He's also made an explicit point of talking about the Supreme Court and the Department of Justice recently with this tweet. Again, making sure that his politics are known, stepping away from his area of expertise, where yes, he is one of the most successful investors of all time. And guess what, guys? He successfully predicted this bubble as well. Well, he's stepping into the politics space, trying to set the record straight and have his say. Now, as I said earlier, I don't know exactly how this is going to change politics in the US. It is clear that some and probably most of these billionaires are right-leaning and probably not too favorable towards the Democratic government in general, and especially this Biden administration, which has an awful record on finance. It isn't all right-leaning though. As I said earlier, SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX fame, he is clearly left-leaning, and there are plenty on that side as well. Michael Bloomberg as well is a staunch Democrat. I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, but I do think it's going to poison politics further. Division is not going to change. It's not going to get much better. We're probably going to get more divided and more politicized, and nuance is going to go further out of the window, and this will affect finance. It will affect the markets and your investments. It should be clear that a government has influence over the markets, especially when we look at what's happened with the Federal Reserve over the last few years and the fact that actually positions in the Federal Reserve are appointed by the administration in power. If Biden had replaced Jerome Powell with someone else, perhaps Brainard, then we may be in a very different position today, but there was a decision made by that Democrat and that influenced our investments, and really, that's why we're seeing such an aggressive crash these days. Maybe I'm way off base. Maybe you didn't want to hear this video. If you did, then, well, you should have just clicked off, to be honest. You don't have to watch everything I put out. Maybe this should have gone on the politics channel as well, but frankly, I feel it is slightly relevant, especially when we just consider how poorly markets are performing right now and how actually things aren't looking so bright in the future. I think we have months more, maybe even years of volatility and slow but steady declines across the board for almost every asset class. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to bless the YouTube algorithm. It really does help. If you want to join our exclusive community, then check out our Patreon. You get access to our Discord server and extra content like access to my portfolio and buy and sell alerts for all my own investments. Also, make sure to check out the link in the description to Masterworks. They can help you protect your portfolio against market turmoil through fractional shares of art from world famous artists. Art has historically proven to be uncorrelated to the markets, so it's a really valuable resource with the markets falling every week. There's also a link in the description to iTrust Capital, a site that allows you to invest in crypto through your tax-advantaged IRA, which could literally save you thousands. If you think that crypto going down is a buy-in opportunity, then now is the perfect time to join iTrust Capital. Thank you all for watching. Stay stoic. Until next time.